Well, we made it to OJ. Yes, the YouTube box is white. It's black on my screen. I can't fix it today. Technology has not been my friend. But I'm not muted. So, no, it's not. It's just not 80 degrees. We had a snow yesterday that melted almost immediately. Okay, I got my loopy on. Okay, I just messed up. There we go. We're good to go.
Didn't you in fact testify to what I just read to you only less than 1 year ago?
I don't remember how long ago it was.
You have an opportunity to see what he's referring to, like what those are the rules.
Well, at this point, but if you're going to confront him with the specifics, we need to see it.
I understand. Do you recall testifying in a case involving a defendant named McIntosh in the state of California?
Yes, I do.
Isn't it correct that in that case you testified to the fact that if there is this cross-check on enough samples, that is a significant method of validation?
To be confronted with the specifics.
Sustained.
Objection needs to be confronted with
Sustained.
the specifics.
Form of the question.
Dr. Gerdes, with regard to this McIntosh case, didn't you testify in that case under a year ago?
Yes,
And isn't it in that case that you made that specific comment that I just read to you?
I may have.
Counsel, do you have volume, line, page?
Could we approach a bench?
You need to have that.
Can I proceed and return to that, Your Honor?
I'm going to move to strike unless he can show us a specific reference.
Proceed.
Thank you.
It will be subject to a motion to strike, though.
In your view, Dr. Gerdes, is a 5-probe RFLP match a significant match?
Yes,
What about a 6-probe match? Is that significant?
yes,
An 8-probe match?
yes,
Is a 14-probe match on a sample significant as far as RFLP typing?
yes.
Is a 14-probe match significant whether it's PCR or RFLP on a sample?
It depends on the samples. We need to, again, all of these are significant in terms of the number of matches, but you have to, of course, take into consideration the nature of the sample, whether there's a mixture or not. There are other things that complicate this issue. I can't just give you a blanket statement that that many probes is significant unless I know the nature of the samples and whether they're mixtures and those sorts of issues.
If you see a sample that's a 6-probe match that's showing either 1 or 2 bands that clearly match the 1 or 2 bands that an individual has, that's a significant match, isn't it?
Big.
Yes,
And whether it's 8 or 14, if 6 is significant, anything higher is more significant, isn't that right?
that's true.
Now, as far as this case, did you examine the RFLP results obtained by the laboratories in this case?
I did.
And you're familiar with them?
Yes,
Isn't it correct, Dr. Gerdes, that as far as the RFLP and PCR results in this case, that the RFLP results confirm the PCR results in this case?
in certain items, yes.
It's true on a number of items, isn't it?
Yes,
And in fact, this case involves many RFLP matches, doesn't it?
yes.
Have you seen a case with more RFLP matches in your history of consulting with criminal defendants?
Sustained.
Your Honor, at this time I have a board that I would like to be marked as people's next in order.
570? 570.
570?
570.
Actually, would it? I think in the normal place, if that's acceptable.
May I step down?
Anything close to approach is a shot. Apprehend, and every time they say and, we take a shot.
Now, Dr. Gerdes, I'd like to show you what's been marked. People's Exhibit 570, I believe.
570.
This board is entitled at the top Results of RFLP DNA Analysis, is that right?
Yes.
And then there appear to be a number of different samples listed on the far left. Is that right?
Yes.
And then across to the right are columns entitled basically which laboratory produced the result,
Yes.
followed by what the RFLP results were in terms of the number of probes,
Yes.
and then lastly, individuals who are not excluded from those particular samples as having been the donors of the DNA. Is that right?
That's right.
Now, turning your attention first, there appear to be 4 samples from LAPD item number 9, the glove. Is that correct?
Yes.
And on those, and let's start with the first sample, and can we use G1? Is that a way of telling the 4 samples apart?
Yes.
That sample revealed results from the Department of Justice after testing at 5 RFLP probes, correct?
Correct.
And those results excluded, that is, indicated a mixture of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman, correct?
Correct.
In your testimony, you have not criticized the accuracy of that result, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, in your testimony, you have conceded that that result is accurate.
Yes.
Incidentally, when you use the term, what does a significant match mean? I'm not sure that question was clear. Let me rephrase it. As far as a 5-probe match or a 6-probe match and so on being a significant match, what does the term significant mean in that context to you?
As you know, there's a controversy as to how, what level of significance there is. But in my opinion, 5 probes would be certainly very significant in terms of putting some weight as to that match.
And in fact, in your opinion, that would be strong evidence that in fact a sample that matches at 5 probes came from a particular individual who matches that sample.
Again, it's controversial, and I'm not a population biologist. I'm not involved in that controversy, but it would be, in my opinion, significant.
When you perform a paternity analysis, how many probes do you routinely use in determining whether or not a father is the father of a child?
Fraternity, you're comparing apples and oranges. It's a different statistics. It's done in an entirely different way, so it's really not a good comparison, but we do use 5 probes.
5 probes?
Yeah.
Would that be
5
the same number as were
probes?
used on at least
Sir.
item G1?
Yes.
All right.
Sir.
Turning to G2, those
Sir?
results reflected a 5-probe RFLP match to both Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman, correct?
Correct.
And you have no scientific criticism of that result.
No.
Turning to G3, that result revealed an 8-probe match to Ronald Goldman, correct?
Yes.
And in your view, that result was appropriate, correct?
Yes.
And then lastly on the gloved area G4, the results showed a 5-probe RFLP match to both Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown, correct?
Correct.
No criticism of that result.
That's correct.
Turning to the Rockingham foyer, item number 12, Cellmark produced a 5-probe match to Mr. Simpson using RFLP, correct?
Correct.
You don't have any criticism of the accuracy of the results obtained by Cellmark, correct?
That's correct.
Turning to the sock, in fact, there were a total of, and let's start with the ankle area, both the Department of Justice and Cellmark tested the ankle area of the sock using RFLP, correct?
Correct.
That testing revealed at the Department of Justice an 11-probe match to Nicole Brown, correct?
Correct.
Cellmark also probed staining from that same sample at 5 probes, is that right?
Correct.
How many probes does that total?
16.
Is that then a 16-probe match with Nicole Brown?
It is.
If 2 of the probes used by Cellmark and DOJ were the same, would it then be a 14-probe match in reality?
Yes.
And that's in fact the case, isn't it, Dr. Gerdes?
Yes.
That 2 of the probes used by those laboratories are the same.
Yes.
You have no quarrel with the accuracy of the results on the sock, is that right?
That's correct.
Turning to the Bundy walkway, item number 52, Cellmark produced a 5-probe match with Mr. Simpson, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, that data correctly reveals a 5-probe match with Mr. Simpson, correct?
In this particular item, there's very little DNA, and in this particular item, I disagree with that.
Is it your opinion that Dr. Cotton was incorrect when she concluded that that match existed with regard to Mr. Simpson?
She's not incorrect in concluding the match, but the source of the DNA here is what the issue is. That's where the question is. There's very little DNA. It's down at the level of DNA where cross-contamination could be the explanation. And the circumstances under which that particular item was handled makes that a distinct possibility.
Dr. Gerdes, is it your testimony that the RFLP results on item number 52 came from contamination?
Yes.
And in fact, is it your opinion to a reasonable scientific certainty that item 52 revealed DNA that was not from the donor of the blood stain, but in fact came from another source?
I think it's consistent with that.
You're not offering an opinion that it came, but you're raising the possibility. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Turning to item number 78, the Ronald Goldman boot drop, that revealed a 5-probe match to Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman, correct?
Correct.
And then lastly on this board, referring to item number 117, the Bundy rear gate. First of all, how many probes? There doesn't appear to be anything written in under RFLP results, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us how many probes that sample matched Mr. Simpson at?
I don't recall offhand, at least 5, but I'm not sure how many they did.
All right. Is that something that you can determine from your notes?
I did not bring the RFLP notes with me.
Are they available in the courtroom? far as your notes?
My notes, no.
Yes. All right.
I can suggest this.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Just object to counsel's comments. Thank you.
Proceed.
Dr. Gerdes, are you guessing that it was at 5 probes?
Unless I looked that up, I don't know exactly how many probes there were on that particular item.
Your testimony has revealed you have no criticism of that match to Mr. Simpson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. Incidentally, Dr. Gerdes, you're not familiar with the fact that there were serology tests conducted on many of these evidence items, correct?
We've gone over this.
It's merely foundational to the next question.
All right, proceed.
I'm not familiar with I have not seen the reports. I'm familiar that they were done, but I'm not familiar with the specifics.
Isn't it true that if the serology results confirmed, well, let me rephrase that. Isn't it true that if the serology results were consistent with the PCR results, that serology would be another methodology that the accuracy of the PCR results can be cross-checked against?
Objection has the answers beyond the scope. Sustained. We've already asked that question.
Do you utilize serology to confirm the accuracy of any of the results in your own laboratory?
It's the other way around. We have serological tests where we may do PCR to confirm that
So you use PCR to confirm the accuracy of your serology results.
in certain circumstances.
Incidentally, serologic techniques aren't nearly as sensitive as PCR, correct?
That's correct.
It would be much harder to cross-contaminate a sample and obtain a serological result than it would a PCR result, correct?
In general, that's true, yes.
In other words, cross-contamination isn't the same concern with serologic techniques because they're not as sensitive as PCR is to detect small amounts.
It depends. You have to look at the specific tests and so forth, but in general, that's true.
As far as cross-checking by these different techniques, PCR and RFLP, isn't it true that additional markers beyond DQ alpha, such as polymarker, the 5 polymarkers, and D1S80 give the analyst an opportunity to cross-check the accuracy of results even more?
Again, you have to talk about the specifics. In the polymarker system, there's a 2-probe. In most cases, there are 2 allele systems. Except, 2 of them are 3 allele, and the rest are 2 allele systems.
Right.
And if you're dealing with mixtures,
Time to take my daughter
such
to
as
work.
a contaminant would introduce,
I'll be back
it's
soon,
frequently
guys.
not informative because you have only
Let's
2.
just
You have an A
see
and a B, and if
If
you have
there's
both, then
any
it
sidebars.
includes everybody. So it's not quite as informative as DQ alpha at being able to look at the possibility of additional human DNA being there.
Yes, sir.
In other words, as to the polymarkers,
No
they don't have a
shots.
lot of different
Ah.
variations, correct, individually?
That's correct.
In
But
20
they can
minutes, we hit a
present very
sidebar.
informative results when you look at many
won't be
of them,
back in
such
time
as
for
the
that.
5.
It's possible, yes.
D1S80 is another marker, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, it has more variations or different possible types than the 5 polymarkers.
Yes.
Nail clippings, and perhaps we can deal with them all at once. Do they produce the same results on each of the 3 separate items?
Yes.
How many different genetic markers produced results consistent with Nicole Brown on each of them?
7.
And lastly, turning to the rear gate, stains 115, 116, and 117. As to item number 117, does 8 probes sound correct?
Yes.
As to the RFLP match with Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
How many different PCR markers were also consistent with Mr. Simpson?
There's 2.
Referring to DQ alpha and D1S80?
Correct.
Dr. Gerdes, isn't it the case that with respect to the Bundy blood results, the RFLP results confirm the PCR markers, whether it's 1 marker or all 7 markers?
On that one item, which it does on the face of it.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, I would like to use Exhibit 260 as similar results for you.
All right.
Dr. Gertie is referring you to what's People's Exhibit 260. Have you again either seen this board or a board with similar results? This board contains a number of results obtained using PCR, correct?
Yes.
And for the record, this is results of DNA analysis of the Bronco.
Thank you, Your Honor. Referring you to the first sample, item number 23 from the interior of the Bronco, did that produce a result consistent with Mr. Simpson at one genetic marker type following PCR?
Yes.
Does this board in fact show PCR results only from inside the Bronco?
Yes.
Referring you to the second item, number 24, how many genetic markers were typed that were consistent with Mr. Simpson?
1,
Referring to 25, how many genetic markers were typed consistent with Mr. Simpson?
2,
Turning to the steering wheel, item number 29. First of all, how many genetic markers were actually typed following PCR?
6.
And with regard to those samples, is it your opinion also that from a review of those results, that neither Mr. Simpson nor Nicole Brown can be excluded?
Yes.
Item number 30, how many PCR genetic markers were used?
There are 2.
And 31?
2,
From the sidewall, item number 34, how many?
1,
Incidentally, 30, I neglected to ask this, 30 produced a result from 2 markers consistent with Mr. Simpson.
yes.
31 produced a result at 2 markers consistent with both Mr. Simpson and Ronald Goldman.
Again, this is the item where the weak 1.3 is in contention as far as I'm concerned. But that's what they say here, yes.
In other words, you have some criticism of the interpretation of that 1.3 allele, correct?
That's correct.
Turning to item number 34, that result at 1 marker was consistent with Mr. Simpson.
Yes.
What about item 293, the carpet on the driver's side? How many markers produced results that were consistent with Nicole Brown?
There are 2.
And then lastly, if we can deal with 303, 304, and 305 together, were there in fact 2 genetic markers that were typed following PCR with those evidence samples?
Yeah, these are the evidence items, this last bunch that were collected 1 month later.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive.
Sustain, answer stricken, juries to disregard. Ask the question again.
Dr. Gerties, items 303, 304, and 305 were typed at how many genetic markers following PCR?
2.
And did they in fact produce results not excluding either Mr. Simpson, Ronald Goldman, or Nicole Brown?
That's what's listed.
And then lastly, Your Honor, at this time I'd like to utilize Exhibit 262, a similar result board. Doctor, again, People's Exhibit 262, is that a board again similar to one that you have seen either in this form or a different form?
Yes.
And with regard to the results, starting with sock number 13, that is the particular item that produced what was a total of a 16-probe match, but was 14 different probes consistent with Nicole Brown, correct?
Correct.
You have conceded, or you have offered the opinion, that that 14-probe match is in fact a correct one, is that right?
Correct.
With regard to that, is that a significant match at 14 probes?
Yes.
And in fact, that's, in your opinion, would that be an extremely significant match?
Again, there's controversy as to how to weight these things. In my opinion, yes, it would be.
I'm sorry, yes, it would be? That sample was typed also at PCR-based markers, wasn't it?
Yes.
How many?
2. Well, sorry, 7.
So 7 different genetic markers typed following PCR achieved the same results as far as consistency with Nicole Brown as the 14 RFLP probe matches, correct?
Correct.
In your opinion, is that an example of an important cross-check between PCR and RFLP results?
It can be looked at as a cross-check. Yes.
It is a cross-check, isn't it?
Yes.
If one of those PCR results produced a result that wasn't consistent with Nicole Brown, wouldn't that potentially raise a question about the reliability of PCR typing in forensics?
Yes.
That didn't occur in this case, did it, on this sample?
Not on this one.
Turning to the remainder, and perhaps we can deal with the remaining samples, that is 5 more evidence items, correct?
Yes.
And they were typed at 2 different genetic markers following PCR?
Yes.
They all produced, at least with regard, we better break it down a little bit. 42A2 produced results consistent with Mr. Simpson at 2 markers, correct?
Correct.
42A3 was actually typed using both PCR and RFLP, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, the RFLP results revealed an 8-probe match to Mr. Simpson on 42A3.
Yes.
The PCR results were consistent with that RFLP result, weren't they?
Yes.
And in fact, the PCR results and the RFLP results were the same in being consistent with Mr. Simpson.
Yes.
Turning to 42A4, was that typed at 2 different PCR genetic markers?
Yes.
Did that in fact produce a result consistent with Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
And then lastly, turning to 42B1 and 42B2, how many genetic markers were typed with those 2 samples?
2.
Producing results consistent with Nicole Brown, correct?
With the exception of 42B2, where this trace 1.2 needs to be interpreted.
In your view, is that possible trace 1.2 the result of real DNA or not?
And that's the issue here. When you have traces in the system, you can't tell.
Well, I'm asking you with regard to that sample, what's your opinion?
In that particular sample, I don't know.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
We're done with 262?
Yes. The court was going to take a break.
Yeah, 30.
Very well. One more board I would ask to be marked as equals 561.
571.
571. For the record, this board could be described as a board labeled concordance of Cellmark results with DOJ results.
Yes.
Dr. Gerdes, with respect to, and let's start with the first item, 13A1, is it correct, and we've discussed this to some extent a few moments ago, that the RFLP results obtained by each laboratory were consistent with one another, correct?
Correct.
And that's with the fact that as to that sample, there were a number of RFLP probes that matched Nicole Brown, correct?
Correct.
Is that an example of, as you've used the term, significant match?
Yes.
There were also PCR results that you described a few moments ago that were also consistent with Nicole Brown from each laboratory, correct?
On that item, yes.
And in fact, Cellmark's DQ alpha and polymarker results were consistent with the Department of Justice's DQ alpha and D1S80 results, correct?
Correct.
Would this be an example where different laboratories achieved the same results from the same sample?
Yes.
Turning to the steering wheel, that particular item was typed by Cellmark at 6 genetic markers and by DOJ at one of the same markers, DQ alpha, correct?
Correct.
Those results were consistent with one another, weren't they?
Yes.
Turning to item 47 on the Bundy walkway, Cellmark's 6 genetic marker results were consistent with DOJ's 2 genetic marker results, one of which was typed by both laboratories. One marker.
Yes.
Turning to item number 48 from the Bundy walkway, is it correct that the 6 genetic markers typed by Cellmark were consistent with the 2 genetic markers typed by the Department of Justice, again, one of which was the same DQ alpha marker?
Yes.
In these instances, 47, 48, in fact, 2 laboratories tested material from the same sample using the same genetic marker, didn't they?
Yes.
Doesn't that constitute a cross-check of the accuracy of typing results by a laboratory?
Typing that item? Yes.
Turning to item 50, again, 6 genetic markers were typed at Cellmark and 2 genetic markers at DOJ, one of which was the same DQ alpha marker.
Yes.
And in this series, item 52 produced RFLP results obtained by Cellmark, correct?
Yes.
And 6 additional genetic markers following PCR at Cellmark.
Yes.
And then again, 2 PCR-based markers were typed at the Department of Justice, obtaining results the same as at Cellmark, correct?
For that DNA, yes.
And then lastly, turning to item number 84, and that was a series of 3 different samples from fingernail clippings and scrapings, correct?
Correct.
Actually had 3 different numbers because there were 3 different items. With regard to that sample, Cellmark typed them at 6 genetic markers,
Yes.
consistent with Nicole Simpson,
Yes.
Nicole Brown Simpson,
Yes.
and DOJ typed those samples at 1 genetic marker, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the results from those 2 different laboratories, they are in fact consistent with one another in terms of the fact that Nicole Brown could not be excluded as the donor of that DNA, correct?
That's correct.
Isn't this inter-laboratory comparison, in fact, when one looks at the number of samples, a cross-check of the accuracy of results?
It's a cross-check of the items that were extracted by those labs. Yes.
All right, Your Honor, I was going to change into another area that was going to actually be my final area, but it will take longer than 5 minutes.
Well, let's use the 5 minutes we have.
Very well. Dr. Gerdes, this case doesn't involve testing of one or two evidence items, such as one or two bloodstains on a sidewalk, does it?
That's true.
In fact, in this case, there are more than 40 different evidence samples that produced DNA typing results. Isn't that correct?
That sounds about right.
Isn't it correct that with respect to the negative controls in this case, unstained substrate controls, that's one negative control, correct?
Correct.
A reagent blank, is that another negative control for PCR typing?
Correct.
There's also a negative amplification control, as we discussed last Friday or Thursday.
Correct.
Isn't it correct that all of those controls, the substrate controls, the reagent blanks, the negative amplification controls in this case, show no evidence of contamination?
There's one item from Cellmark that's a reagent blank that shows some evidence of contamination. With that one exception, all of the rest appear clean.
How many different runs do these approximately 40 or more than 40 evidence items include in this case? I'm referring to PCR runs.
No, I haven't counted them.
Well, would
But,
samples be
I
run
would-
more than once?
Yes.
How many
some
times?
samples, other samples not.
So some samples would be run one time?
Yes.
What's the most another sample? I'm referring to evidence materials. What's the most times another sample would be run?
Taken repetitive. Sustained. It's vague.
In terms of the use of the term run,
All right, let the record reflect that we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Dr. John Gerdes is on the witness stand undergoing cross-examination by Mr. Clark. And Mr. Clark, you may conclude. You're welcome.
have a moment with counsel.
What is this? Transcripts. All right, with court reporter, please. proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Gerdes, with regard to the LAPD's DNA testing in this case, you have described previously that Mr. Yamauchi conducted PCR typing in this case on June 14 and June 15, correct?
Correct.
And in that testing, he used the controls that you previously described as a result of my asking questions about reagent blanks and so forth, correct?
Correct.
Now, Your Honor, I have another document, one more document I'd ask to be marked as People's, I believe, 572, which I previously shown to counsel. And with the court's permission, I will display it on the Elmo.
Proceed.
Dr. Gerdes, can you see that?
I'd like to step
That's
down if I
fine.
can.
First of all, this particular document or slide, as is now on the screen, have you had a chance to see that or take a look at it last week?
I saw it briefly, yes.
And did you have an opportunity to calculate the total number of evidence samples, known standards, and controls that Mr. Yamauchi used in his testing in this case?
Yes,
Now, with regard to, and there were two different dates for this testing, is that right?
that's correct.
And on both June 14th and June 15th, Mr. Yamauchi typed evidence samples.
Yes,
He also typed known standards from the three people in this case.
yes,
And he also utilized a series of controls, is that right?
yes.
As far as the known standards, do you call those a control or not?
They are in the sense that they are defined as coming from a single individual, and if you can find evidence of human DNA, additional human DNA, that's evidence of contamination.
So, in a sense, the known standards can act as a control, correct?
Correct.
So that if a person was a, let's say, a DQ alpha 1.1, 1.2, and you saw a 3 and a 4 showing up in addition to the 1.1 and 1.2, that's again another opportunity for contamination to signal itself, at least in that sample.
That's correct.
Now, as far as the total number of samples typed by Mr. Yamauchi, is it correct that, including both June 14th and June 15th, he typed a total of 42 different samples?
That's correct.
That consisted of 18 evidence samples, whether it's a stain from the sidewalk at Bundy or a sample from the Bronco, correct?
Correct.
Or other samples that he typed as well.
Correct.
He also typed the 3 known standards from the 3 individuals in this case, Mr. Simpson, Ms. Brown, and Mr. Goldman.
That's correct.
The total number of evidence and known standards was 21, is that right?
Yes.
And is it also correct that the total number of controls used in this case by Mr. Yamauchi on June 14 and 15 was 21?
Yes.
Is it then correct that of the 42 samples typed by Mr. Yamauchi in this case on June 14th and June 15th, half of them, that is 50%, were controls?
On this specific case, yes.
In your view, is that an adequate number of controls for typing?
It should be.
And in fact it is, isn't it?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now, Dr. Gerdes, you have last Wednesday and Thursday repeatedly used terms like my interpretation, possibility, and risk. Do you recall using those words?
Yes.
And that was in reference to your testimony about the dangers of contamination in this case, correct?
Yes.
You can't quantify that risk, can you? That is, put a number on the risk.
Well, if there were adequate blind proficiency studies, at least you could have some idea about error rate, which would give you some idea of risk. And the other thing that you can do is, as I've done here, you can look at all of the testing around the time frame of the testing done in an instant case and see how many times errors were made and how many times there was evidence of contamination. So they are, those are objective ways of measuring the amount of risk, but as to coming up with a number that's a specific number that's going to say 80% of the time you'll make a mistake or something like that, no, you can't quantify it.
And in fact, you testified about what you believe to be errors in the laboratory, and we went through each of the 5, correct?
Yes, we did.
Now, as far as your laboratory's work in diagnosis of diseases, you produce results that ultimately go to a doctor, correct?
Correct.
And a doctor is required to notify that patient of risks no matter how unlikely they are to occur, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware of the non-blood stain evidence in this case?
You mean fibers, hair, etc.?
All the other evidence in this case.
Peripherally.
Outside the scope or relevant?
When you say peripherally, doctor, what do you mean?
Well, I certainly did not review specific documents as to those things outside of my field, but I'm aware of them because of media coverage, and just like anybody else would be.
So watching TV, that would be one source?
Yes.
Reading the newspaper?
Yes.
Reading magazines, if you do?
Yes.
You have also testified that it's ultimately for the jury to decide the reliability of the scientific evidence in this case. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Is it also correct that it is ultimately for the jury to decide whether, in fact, any contamination occurred in this case?
That's up to their discretion, yes.
All you have told this jury is that there might be contamination in this case, correct?
I believe I've documented as precisely as I can the level of contamination that exists, and from that point on, I've suggested how that may have, or tried to explain how that would have an impact on the case. From that point on, it's up to the jury to deal with that piece of evidence in the context of the whole case.
You have talked about Dr. Gertie's possibilities, not what actually happened, correct?
Calls for conclusions. Sustained. It's argumentative.
You have spoken, you have described what you believe to be possibilities in this case. Is that right?
I have, as objectively as possible, evaluated the level of contamination at LAPD, the errors that I felt were a result of that, the evidence of cross-contamination in the reference samples, and the implications of that in terms of the evidence in this case. That's what I've attempted to explain.
You've spoken about what could happen, not what did happen, correct?
I don't have 100% assurance that that did happen. I have no scientific confidence that it couldn't have happened.
Dr. Gerties, the results in this case from 3 different laboratories are consistent with the defendant's blood being left at the crime scene, aren't they?
The results from the 3 labs, as far as reported results, yes.
They are consistent with mixtures of DNA from the defendant, Ronald Goldman, and Nicole Brown being found in the Ford Bronco. Isn't that correct?
The results are consistent with that as they're detected.
Incidentally, you haven't suggested to this jury that the defendant's reference sample cross-contaminated the evidence taken from the Bronco, have you?
The fact that I have some indications of cross-contamination in those reference samples obviously increases, again, the risk that it could cross-contaminate something else.
Dr. Gerties, what I'm asking you is you haven't suggested to this jury that the defendant's reference sample cross-contaminated any evidence in the Bronco, have you?
His particular sample?
Correct.
It's hard to tell. I mean, I have no evidence, specific evidence, hard evidence of that.
You don't have any evidence of it whatsoever, do you?
I have some evidence that the reference samples themselves may have cross-contaminated. At that point, everything becomes suspicious.
Dr. Gerties, what I'm asking you is, you don't have any evidence whatsoever that the defendant's reference sample cross-contaminated any of the stains from the Bronco.
I don't have any direct evidence of that, no.
Where in the history of these samples did the defendant's reference sample come into even potential contact with the Bronco evidence samples?
There are other items that were collected at that residence who arguably may have come from the defendant. And it may not have been the reference sample, but it may have been some of those items.
Dr. Gerties, what I'm asking you is, with regard to the defendant's reference sample, when did it come into any potential contact with the Bronco evidence stains?
It didn't.
The results in this case, Dr. Gerties, are consistent with the defendant's blood leading up to and inside his home on Rockingham. Isn't that correct?
The typing results appear that way, yes.
Those results are consistent with Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman's blood being found on the glove at Rockingham, correct?
Again, there are multiple explanations. That's one explanation.
Dr. Gerties, didn't you concede last week that the RFLP matches to the 2 victims on the glove were correct?
Yes.
Dr. Gerties, isn't it true that the DNA typing results from the laboratories in this case are consistent with Nicole Brown's and Mr. Simpson's blood being on the sock found at the residence?
Overruled 5 times. Overruled.
Yes, that's true.
And in fact, you've conceded that much during your testimony, correct?
I have.
Now, 5 probes as a match is significant, correct?
We have gone through this part.
When you conduct your paternity testing, you look at individual probes, correct?
Correct.
You look at more than one probe because a father might be excluded as being the father of a particular child, correct?
Overruled.
Yes,
And in fact, you look at routinely 5 different genetic markers, is that right?
that's correct. We're doing DNA only.
Just counting DNA, right?
Yes.
And you're looking at each of those markers, is this potential father or this person who might be the father excluded as the father of that child, correct?
Correct.
Once you look at those probes, you then estimate how rare is that match at one probe.
Sustained. We've gone through this already.
Dr. Gerties, one of the concerns that you have expressed in forensics is the fact that a sample may be small and you may not be able to retest it, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as errors, and you described how in medical diagnostics, if a patient dies because of a misdiagnosis, you know you've made a mistake. Is that right?
That's a pretty drastic example, but yes.
And you described the fact last week that in your view there is no independent way of assessing whether or not mistakes are made in the forensic setting. Do you recall that?
I believe that's true.
Are you aware of remaining evidence in this case that can be retested?
I'm not aware of any evidence that hasn't been handled by the LAPD that can be retested.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive. Dr. Gerdes, are you aware of remaining evidence in this case that can be retested?
There are items that can be retested.
There are a number of evidence items, aren't there?
Yes.
And in fact, there are remaining swatches from many of the very items that we've described, that you've described during your testimony in this case.
There are.
Whether it's the Bundy blood drops,
Correct.
whether it's DNA removed from the Bronco,
Correct.
whether it's DNA from the defendant's home,
Correct.
whether it's DNA on the glove,
Correct.
whether it's DNA on the socks.
Correct.
Have you tested any of that?
We don't do this type of testing.
Well, as far as the difference between the testing you do in your laboratory and forensic labs do, you've testified the only difference is the nature of the specimen, a blood stain versus a blood vial, correct?
No, I believe I testified that it's comparing apples and oranges, that there is a completely different setup and statistics involved in paternity from forensics. They really are not the same, other than the fact that the methodology itself, as far as how you run the gels, is the same.
Dr. Gerdes, if you exclude somebody, statistics don't mean anything, do they?
That's true.
In other words, if you test a sample and at a genetic marker someone's excluded as having left a sample at a crime scene, let's say, numbers don't mean a thing.
That's right.
As far as in your laboratory, you have tested the DQ alpha marker before, correct?
Not in a forensic sense.
Have you tested the DQ alpha marker before, doctor?
Yes.
And in that testing, did you feel competent to perform that testing of the DQ alpha marker?
Yes.
As far as removing DNA from a blood stain, do you feel that you could do that?
Yes, I could do that, but the difficulty is, as we've discussed over and over, whether that's you need to have confidence. The difference in the way I do things and the way forensics do that is I have confidence that the specimen I'm working with came from a single individual. And the complications in terms of statistics, interpretation, potential error that's introduced by the fact that these are mixtures or potentially mixtures, that's the issue.
Dr. Gerdes, if one of those samples from the bloody blood drop trail, 47 through 52, if one of those was typed and it revealed a genetic marker, and I'm referring to the remaining evidence, that excluded Mr. Simpson, wouldn't that be important?
Yes.
That would be extremely important, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Have you suggested to the defense in this case that retesting should be done?
Sustained. Objection, move to strike and ask for an instruction. Overruled. On burdens of proof.
Wouldn't reanalysis of these samples support, if they produced exclusionary results, support your opinions in this case?
Objection. Overruled.
Not at this point.
Is it your view then that if further testing in this case revealed Mr. Simpson was excluded from item 52, that wouldn't support any of the opinions you've offered in this case about forensic DNA typing?
In my opinion, with the risk of contamination, there would be no possible PCR interpretation possible at this point because the samples have been handled in the way they have been.
Are you aware of other laboratories?
Keep going.
Are you aware of other laboratories, doctor, that perform forensic retesting?
Yes.
Does Dr. Blake, is he able to perform DQ alpha typing on forensic specimens?
Yes.
Is Mr. Taylor able to perform retesting on forensic specimens?
Yes.
Is Dr. Lee able to perform forensic testing on specimens using DNA typing?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
We have.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's a couple of things I need to take up out of your presence, so I'm going to ask you to step back into the jury room. We'll call you out in probably 10 or 15 minutes. All right, Dr. Bridge, you can step down. All right, the record should reflect all the jurors that withdrawn from the courtroom. Mr. Schick.
First, Mr. Cochran has an application.
As to this issue, I'd like to just address the court, Your Honor, as to one issue. Your Honor, repeatedly we've seen questioning by the prosecutors with regard to the defense could do this, the defense could do that, and I think that's grossly unfair to Mr. Simpson because the court is aware the defendant didn't have to prove anything. You, just hark back to the voir dire. You've told this jury Mr. Simpson could go to sleep if he wanted to. Now, obviously, he hasn't done that in this case, but I think it's terribly unfair under the provisions of the state constitution, the U.S. Constitution, to try to shift the burden to Mr. Simpson. He don't have to prove. He does not have to prove anything. And I think that whole line of questioning is unfair. I'm making this objection primarily because I think it applies not only to this witness but to others. And what I'm asking the court to do is to prohibit the prosecution from doing this, and also at the appropriate time you will be instructing this jury, but to instruct them, the defense does not have to do any kind of testing in this particular case. And I think it's unfair. It's unfair inference. You mentioned Mr. Blake 100 times, and now we hear Blake and Taylor and what Gerdes could have done, and that's really unfair, Your Honor. And I wanted to at least address the court on this and ask you to give a curative instruction in that regard.
Right, that will be given and has been given as a course of the court's normal instructions, that the burden is on the prosecution. However, there's also a long line of cases that during the course of argument, the prosecution can argue the failure to call logical witnesses.
But doesn't it fly in the face, my point is, just briefly, Your Honor, not to belabor it, doesn't it fly in the face of where you start off instructing the jury, we don't have to prove anything. Then they come along and they do exactly that, and then you instruct them that we don't have to prove anything. So
I
I
have
think
instructed them in the most graphic and simple way as I can, that Mr. Simpson can sit here and sleep through the whole trial if he cares to.
you did that. And so what I'm saying
And that's
is,
something that even you remember, Mr. Carter.
I remember that,
correct?
and I remember that, Your Honor, and I just reminded you
I'm
of that.
sure
Right.
the jury
Right.
remembers that one too.
Right.
That's why I use it.
Right, but, and I appreciate that, Your Honor. But in addition to that, then it seems to me to be an incongruity for them to continue to throw up this thing as though we have to prove something or we have to do something, because we don't have to. And I think that's grossly unfair, and that's the point.
Well, I will instruct the jury at the appropriate time that the burden is completely and 100% on the prosecution. Rest assured of that. All right, Mr. Sheik.
Some slides that I'll hand up to the court. I have give to the prosecution. What's the best way you want to do? You want to just take a look at them or put them up?
Just hand them to me.
Maybe, Howard, could we just go through
Do you have any extra copies? So we
Yes, I have these. These slides would be used in conjunction with, they address the 4 different examples of errors at LAPD. And if we could turn to,
All right, these are the same 4, or depending on how you call it, 5 mistakes that Mr. Clark went through, correct?
right,
And this is an illustration of the different calls, correct?
yes, this would be a breakout of the genotypes listed on prosecution's exhibit number 561, which are the strips. And what it indicates here is the correct type in the proficiency testing sample being 1.2, 1.3 for the sperm fraction, and it's labeled with the sign for males. And the LAPD type is recorded, which was a 1.24, and it indicates the female fraction, and indicates that this was, as the testimony indicates, done first by Colin Yamauchi on 9/9/93, and then again, Aaron Riley did the same sample, got the same result on 9/21/93. Next slide, please. This indicates,
All right, counsel, I have all of these in front of me.
yes. The next thing is indicates that,
All right, well, rather than sit here and tell me what they are, what are your objections, Mr. Clark?
I think this slide is argumentative and misleading. As far as this witness's own testimony about, and the witness conceded that yes, these people cannot be excluded, even persons with a different type, because of the potential for this spillover of female DNA into male DNA. So just judging by, in particular, the portion of the slide that's in black on the right, this witness has conceded that no, you wouldn't wrongfully include anyone, you wouldn't wrongfully exclude anyone, because the analyst, a trained analyst, must necessarily consider that may be the victim's DNA that's coming out in the sperm fraction. If
All
the
right.
witness hadn't conceded that, I think we'd be in a different situation.
his testimony.
Wait. Mr. Sheck, A1, B2, and C3, these are all casework examples, correct?
B,
Are these casework or validation studies?
what these slides refer to,
I know, the 4 or 5 mistakes. I know
Right,
what we're
that's
talking about here.
this one is a mock validation study.
Okay.
And the point that Dr. Gerdes made on direct, and we feel has to be cleared up, because it's very hard when you deal with these sheets. You have to break out the types and show exactly what the points are. That the typing result of LAPD of a 1.24 could be, if that, given the fact that the female fraction is a 1.24, the number of different possible suspects in terms of genotypes that could be included by that result in a case we're called would have been a 4.4, a 1.24, and a 1.2, 1.2. And that's why he considers this a mistake, and a serious mistake, and kind of thing that he's seen in other forensic laboratories, and that's our
All right.
point.
Mr. Clark, any other comment on all of these matters?
Referring to this first slide?
No, I knew.
Oh, actually, I haven't had a chance to look at the others. We've been dealing with this one.
Do you have them all printed in front of you?
Yes.
Because they're all similar. They're two different batches here.
If I could look at them. Sure.
All right, Mr. Sheck, my one concern is that A1, B2, and C3 are not self-labeled as being mock validation studies.
Well, what I would do is, when we put this up, I'll label
Whereas the
them.
others do clearly say this is proficiency testing.
I see. So, we'll. We'll have Mr. Harris put it on the slide. I'll also refer to the exhibits when I show the slides, so it's clear what we're referring to.
I also think as to the wrong suspects included, that's very argumentative and misleading in view of what
It's inaccurate in terms of a mock.
Well, we put down mock. It's not a real case. It didn't really happen. The point is, it could happen if it were a real case, and that's his testimony.
even in a mock case, it's extremely misleading. That's
All
the
right, but
difficulty.
here's the problem, is we all agree that we've gone through all 4 or 5 of these on both sides. This is a graphic breakout of what's there. I think it's easier to understand in this form as long as it's correctly labeled what it is. That's my only problem with it.
So we should put down, we'll put down mock validation study underneath the 993 rerun 921.
Right, as to A1, B2, and C3.
Yes.
All right, anything else?
I just have a moment to look through me.
All right, Mr. Clark, any other comment?
I just think they're extremely argumentative in the context of this witness's testimony. The way they're worded and the way they're presented, I think, would do nothing but mislead the jury.
All right, objections noted. All right, let's have the jury, please. Check.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Dr. Gerdes, Mr. Clark asked you quite a few questions today about retyping by other laboratories.
Yes.
Now, in terms of an initial cross-contamination of samples at the LAPD, does it matter how many other laboratories typed the samples if they were cross-contaminated initially at LAPD?
No, once you've accidentally or some other way transferred that DNA from one sample to another, it doesn't matter how many gene systems, how many different labs, it's always going to transfer, it's always going to type as the DNA that was transferred.
Now, Mr. Clark showed you what's been marked 564F, which is a series of slides. If I could put this up on please. With respect to typing performed at the LAPD laboratory with respect to 3 of the 5 Bundy blood drop samples. Put that up there, please. In terms of this,
Getting washed out here.
yeah,
There we go.
there we go. Now, listed on this chart are only items 48, 50, and 52. Is that correct?
Correct.
In terms of what was handled by Colin Yamauchi between 9 o'clock and 11 on the morning of June 14th, were samples 47, 48, 49, 50, 52, and the Rockingham glove, all sampled at that time with Mr. Simpson's reference sample.
That's correct.
Right. And where did that occur?
That occurred in the evidence processing.
All right. And in terms of the drying of samples and packaging of samples, were items 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52, along with Rockingham items, including item number 12, the drops taken from the foyer of Mr. Simpson's home, were they all taken out of plastic bags, wet swatches, and put into test tubes by Mr. Fung and Ms. Mazzola without changing gloves and without changing papers on June 13th, as is indicated under the section drying on 613?
Objection. Who states the evidence?
Sustained.
Well, based on your review of the testimony, did Ms. Mazzola and Mr. Fung take out of plastic bags swatches that they described were wet, put them into test tubes for drying on the evening or June 13th, which included 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52, and the different samples collected at Rockingham?
They did.
All right. And that would comport with the section of the chart marked drying, correct?
That's correct.
And on June 14th, in the morning, did Mr. Fung and Ms. Mazzola scrape out of test tubes using a pipette, without changing gloves and without changing paper, put into bindles the swatches that they had previously dried on June 13th?
They did.
Now, what is your opinion about the way that Mr. Fung and Ms. Mazzola handled those samples on June 13th and on June 14th in terms of the danger of cross-contamination?
I think there's significant risk of cross-contamination because they didn't change gloves, because they create aerosols when they try and scrape these little swatches out of the tube, because they handled the reference sample at the same time as all of these other evidence items, and because certain
Excuse me.
items,
Sorry. Objection. Who states the testimony?
Overruled.
and because certain items, a number of items, in fact, were mixed between crime scenes in terms of being handled at the same time.
Incidentally, item number 12, the drops from the floor in the foyer from Mr. Simpson's residence, was that among the last samples collected on June 13th?
Objection. No foundation.
Sustained.
Do you know if those were among the last samples collected by Mr. Fung and Ms. Mazzola on June 13th?
Same objection.
Sustained. Sustained.
All right.
Foundation, counsel.
Are you familiar with the testimony and the records concerning the collection of the items at Rockingham?
Yes.
All right. Was item number 12 one of the last items collected on June 13th?
Yes.
And in terms of DNA concentration, was the concentration of item number 12, in terms of human DNA, higher significantly than the Bundy blood drops?
It was.
All right. And when that sample is handled in conjunction with the Bundy blood drops in the fashion that you've just reviewed on June 13th and on June 14th, does that create a danger of cross-contamination with that sample?
Yes, because you're handling a sample that has a large amount of DNA with samples that have degraded and small amounts of DNA.
And the samples that had degraded in small amounts of DNA were which samples?
The Bundy blood drops.
Now, also, well, could we circle on this the evidence processing room on this flow chart is indicated 613 and 614. Can we draw a circle around that, Mr. Harris? And may I suggest paint? Nope, no. That's the. No. All right. Thank you. Dr. Gerdes, is it your testimony that it is in these procedures on June 13th and June 14th that unacceptable risks of cross-contamination occurred?
Yes, the risk occurred at the very first step that's circled.
And if the cross-contamination to those samples, the Bundy blood drops and the Rockingham glove, occurred at that time, would results be replicated by Cellmark, DOJ, your own laboratory if you type these kinds of samples, Dr. Blake, Dr. Henry Lee, or anyone else you found, assuming that they performed the tests correctly?
They would.
Thank you. Can we print that out and know if that is defense next meeting?
I'm sorry, 1311.
And with the court's permission, could we turn the lights up and I'll go over to a chart.
Don't turn the lights up. You'll wake up juror number 7, and juror number 7 has been through it. Leave him sleep. There's probably a juror number 7 syndrome out there that doctors are curing people of.
All right, this is 259, I believe the Bundy results board.
And, Your Honor, at the same time, I'd like to put up on the Elmo what's previously been marked as defendants 1165. These are the charts of the massive nanograms of DNA.
Why, sir, that's a big board you have there. That's probably because you were snoring and you couldn't hear them.
Now, Dr. Gerdes, starting with what's marked as 47.
Yes.
Was that one of the Bundy blood drops that was handled by Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola on June 13th?
Yes.
Was it one of the items that Mr. Yamauchi handled at the same period that he was handling Mr. Simpson's reference sample?
Objection, no foundation.
This is when Mr. Yamauchi took out the stopper and the blood went through the chem wipe onto his glove?
That's correct.
48 the same?
Correct.
49 the same?
Yes.
50 the same?
Yes.
52 the same?
Yes.
Now 52, in terms of which of the Bundy blood drop swatches were opened up from the bindles when Mr. Yamauchi began handling them on the morning of June 14th, which of the items did he handle first?
Number 52.
Are you familiar with the estimate of the amount of human DNA in each of the Bundy blood drops, 47 through 52, as testified to by Gary Sims based on his calculations from slot blots, yield gels, and the size of the swatches and their weight?
Yes, I am.
All right. Do you regard those as accurate estimates as to the total number of nanograms of human DNA in those items?
Yes, they're consistent with this notice.
All right. And in terms of the yield gels, is it a fair statement that 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52 were samples that were severely degraded in terms of bacterial DNA?
Objection, Jay.
Sustained.
What was the status of those samples in terms of bacterial degradation?
They were all extremely degraded.
Now, with respect to 52, is this the RFLP result that you are concerned about?
Yes.
How many nanograms of human DNA did Robin Cotton testify went into that particular result?
She testified there was 25 nanograms.
Is that different than all the other RFLP results?
All the other RFLP results have more DNA. Adequate DNA. More.
At least 4 times more.
That's correct. At least 4 times more DNA.
Were any other of the samples from which RFLP results obtained, were those handled in the presence of the reference sample and in the period where the reference sample was handled?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
Is it your testimony, sir, that there were unacceptable risks of cross-contamination that are associated with the results on 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52?
Yes.
Excuse me, objection needed.
I'll let it stand as it was.
Now, there are frequency estimates on the right side of this chart for all those items.
Yes, there are.
Could you distinguish for us between frequencies and error rates?
Yes. I mean, these are an estimate of at what percentage of the population or what incidence in the population you might find all of these genetic markers. Error rate has to do with an evaluation of the laboratory itself and the question of how good are they in terms of how often they might make a mistake. And so on the one hand, you're talking about how many, if you do 100 samples, how often would you make an error?
I'm sorry.
And on the other hand, you're talking about, assuming there were no errors, how often would you find this at random in the population?
Do you agree with the recommendation of the National Research Council that laboratory error rate ought to be measured by the use of external blind proficiency tests on samples that replicate casework?
Objection, hearsay, no foundation.
I do.
Does the LAPD have such a program?
No, they don't.
In terms of their open proficiency tests, in your judgment, do those proficiency tests replicate casework?
No, they don't include mixtures or degraded DNA samples, DNAs at low concentrations.
In terms of the study that you performed looking at all the strips and runs at the LAPD laboratory, do you have a judgment as to how personnel at that laboratory handle samples?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
From your study, is there an objective basis for making an assessment as to the risk of error in handling samples at the LAPD?
Same objection.
Sustained. It's vague and overbroad. You need to pare it down.
In your study of contamination at the Los Angeles Police Department, in terms of their runs and strips, did you make an assessment of extraction controls versus amplification controls?
I did.
And what was the significance of that?
Objection vague.
A little.
The significance is that the contamination was found predominantly in the reagent extraction controls.
And what does that indicate about this phase of the DNA process where errors were occurring?
It indicates that in handling samples and the early stages, the extraction stages in both of those areas, that's where the contamination is being introduced in terms of what we can objectively look at, which is their record on doing those samples over the course of that time period.
And does that include the evidence processing room as one of those stages that the extraction control would cover?
I believe it would.
Now, turning to the results from 117, the rear gate.
No, his board. He had a very large board. Look, you can see part of it.
Are you aware
Can't
from
see
your
the
review
whole
of the
thing now
testimony
because it's too large. Camera
as to the
can't
amount
get
of DNA
it.
on that sample?
Yes, it's 150 nanometers.
In your judgment, is that significantly different than the amount of DNA on the other Bundy blood drops?
Yes, it is.
Do you know when that sample was collected?
Yes.
When?
I don't know the exact date, but I believe it was collected in August.
July 3rd?
July. Later, after a month or so after the
Bundy
initial
blood?
samples.
And in terms of bacterial degradation, do you agree with the assessment of Gary Sims that 117 did not show evidence on yield gels of bacterial degradation?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
Are you aware of Mr. Sims' testimony and assessment as to the level of bacterial degradation on item 117?
Yes.
Do you agree with it?
Yes.
Were those samples degraded?
No.
Dr. Gerdes, does it make any sense to you, based on your knowledge of DNA quantitation that samples collected on June 13th from the same area, that is 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52, would be so degraded in terms of bacterial contamination, bacteria, and 117 would show no evidence of that.
Objection, no foundation, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
All right? Does this data, in terms of the dates of collection and the conditions where those samples were collected, make sense to you scientifically?
Same objection.
Sustained.
What is your assessment of the, can you explain the difference in DNA amounts and degradation on 117 versus 47 through 52?
Same objection.
Sustained.
Are you aware of the testimony that the same methods of collection were employed by Dennis Fung in terms of putting the swatches from 117 into a plastic bag, taking them to the laboratory, and drying them in test tubes and sampling the next day, as was followed with 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52?
Objection, misstates the evidence.
Overruled.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
All right. Given that the same procedures were followed, and given that all these items were in the locations where they were recovered, does it make any sense to you scientifically that there should be no evidence of degradation in 117 and so much evidence of degradation in 47 through 52?
Objection, no foundation, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
At photographs of the scene where these different items were collected.
Yes, I've seen photographs.
All right. So you're familiar with where they're collected.
Yes.
In terms of their locations, in terms of the methods of same methods of collection, and in terms of the results with respect to bacterial degradation and yield of human DNA, do these results, what is your assessment of these results?
Same objection, same grounds.
Sustained.
These are foundation.
Foundation, counsel. It's a forensic setting.
Dr. Curtis, do you have a background in microbiology?
Yes, I do.
Does microbiology involve an assessment of the effects of bacteria on DNA?
Yes, it could.
Is that what you got your PhD in?
Yes.
Is that what, have you relied on your microbiology background in terms of your postdoctorate work and your work as a DNA lab director?
Yes.
Do those principles, basic scientific principles of microbiology and molecular genetics that you've been trained in, do those have application to an assessment of bloodstains, bacteria, and substrates?
Yes.
Have you read the literature from forensic laboratories that you've called demonstration papers that deal with degradation of samples taken from crime scenes?
Yes.
Based on all of that, what is your assessment in terms of the data that the Bundy blood drops were severely degraded with bacteria, and the rear gate sample 117 was not, and the rear gate sample had 150 nanograms of DNA, which was 5 times higher than any Bundy blood drop sample?
Same objection, same grounds.
Overruled.
It doesn't seem to make sense to me that you should see about the same level of degradation, and in fact, on 117, which is an older sample, it should have more degradation.
Thank you. Show you what's been marked as Prosecutions 260, entitled Results of DNA Analysis on the Bronco Automobile. Were the results of the steering wheel number 29 from the laboratories a 1.2, 1.14?
Yes, they were.
And taken at face value, would that indicate a mixture of some of the, could it indicate a mixture of somebody with a 1.1, 1.2, and somebody that's a 4,
Yes.
a 4.4, I should say,
Yes.
and somebody that is a 1.24,
Yes.
and somebody that is a 1.14?
Yes.
and that result does not match on the face of it, Mr. Goldman, correct?
That's correct.
He would be excluded from the steering wheel.
You would.
Now, with respect to item number 31 and item number 30, were those the only results from the Bronco console that were removed on June 14th?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
In terms of the samples removed from the Bronco on June 14th, I believe on direct examination you indicated what about those?
Those are the samples that were removed on that date.
Right? And that,
The low numbers indicate samples that were collected on that early date. The high numbers, the hundreds, those are the later samples.
so 303, 304, 305 were removed on August 26th.
Correct.
Now, in terms of 30 and 31, Mr. Clark, on his cross-examination of you, you recall, just pulled out this board and asked you to read the results, correct?
That's correct.
He didn't ask you whether you believe that the result on 31 was scientifically acceptable.
Objection, irrelevant.
No, he didn't ask me.
All right? Your Honor, I'd like to show another board over this for a second.
All right, Mr. Scheck, this is defense exhibit.
1309.
Thank you.
Entitled Bronco Console Stains Collected June 14th, 1994. Dr. Gerdes, in light of the 1.3 appearing on the quality assurance sample 86, quality control sample 816, and the positive control, the intensities of those dots, a call that was made by DOJ, do you believe that it is scientifically acceptable, and I ask you this question to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, to make a call that there is a contributor with a 1.34 in this sample?
Absolutely not. You can't tell if that's real or not because it's on the control. These faint signals, you can't arbitrarily say it's real here and it's not real down there. So you can't make that call.
I'd like to show 1310. 1310 is entitled Bundy Blood Drops LAPD item number 53, DOJ typing.
Yes.
Do you see an inconsistency in the call with respect to the 1.3 on LAPD item 52 and the call on the 1.3 on sample 31?
Objection, leading, also argumentative.
Sustained. Phrase question.
What is your view of the call that was made on item 52 with respect to the 1.3 allele and the call that was made on item 31?
Objection, no foundation.
This just shows the subjectivity of this. In this case, the 1.3 is ignored in this particular item. On the other item, it's counted. And on the controls, it's ignored. So there's no scientific basis as to how you would determine one of these is real and one is not real, other than I don't know how you would decide.
Now, Dr. Gerdes, if we were to assume that the 1.3 is real on item number 52, ask you to keep that assumption in mind. First question is, out of all the different systems used, is the DQ alpha system the most sensitive?
Yes, it is.
So if I ask you to assume that DNA on the Bundy blood drops 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52 is degrading because of bacteria, and that 52, on sample 52, could that 1.3, because DQ alpha is the most sensitive system, if you assume that to be real,
Yes.
be
Cream
DNA
cheese goes with
from another
salty or
contributor?
sweet.
Objection calls for speculation.
Perfect.
Well, let us assume that DNA on item number 53 underwent a 52 underwent a process of bacterial degradation. Do you have that in mind?
I have it.
Let us further assume that there was cross-contamination with Mr. Simpson's reference sample on June 14th at the LAPD laboratory. Do you have that in mind?
Yes.
All right. In theory, if that 1.3 is real, could that represent the contribution of the original source on sample 152, which had degraded?
Same objection. Yes, definitely.
If it were real.
Yes, if it were real.
Your Honor, I think that I don't have another minute and 30
You don't have,
seconds.
you're done?
No. I don't have much more, but I don't have another minute and 30 seconds
All right.
in this line.
All right, why don't you take that down for me, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the morning session. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand at recess until 1:30. All right, Dr. Gerdes, 1:30. On the record in the Simpson matter, all parties are again present. Mr. Cochran, something we need to take up?
Yes, I want to bring something to the court's attention. Your Honor, over the weekend, one of the real fine reporters, Robin Clark, lost his life, and I wanted to just propose to the court that either we have a moment of silence sometime this afternoon or adjourn his memory this afternoon, whatever the court thinks is appropriate in that regard.
Yes, we had left his seat vacant this morning.
I appreciate that. So if the court thinks we can do something else, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, counsel. All right, Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please. All right, good afternoon again, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
You're reminded, sir, you were still under oath. Mr. Scheck, you may continue with your redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Dr. Gerdes,
I might do 30 of them.
discuss with you briefly the results on the glove. I'd like to show you first the results of DNA analysis Rockingham glove, which is prosecution's 272B. Now, Dr. Gerdes, Mr. Clark asked you about the results from RFLP tests that were consistent with Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman on various areas of the glove, specifically G1, G2, G3, G4, G9, that were confirmed by RFLP, well, G4, I'm sorry, that were confirmed by RFLP tests, correct?
Yes.
G11, G10, and G13 are the D1 S80 results in the wrist area of the glove, which produced results with Mr. Simpson. Is that correct?
That's what they state, yes.
Are there any RFLP results confirming that result?
No.
Now, putting on this is Defense 1186, Mr. Yamauchi's diagram of the glove found at Rockingham. Dr. Gerdes, does this diagram reflect what your understanding is of what Mr. Yamauchi did on the morning of June 14th between 9 and 10
There's the
o'clock
gloves.
when he
I
handled
love
the
it.
glove from
I love it.
Rockingham after having handled Mr. Simpson's reference sample where he had that incident where took off the top and the blood went through the Chemex and onto his glove?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
Well, as far as the D1 S80 results from the wrist area of the glove, what is your opinion as to the acceptable risks of cross-contamination with respect to those results?
Objection, no foundation.
They were handled at the same time or shortly after Mr. Simpson's reference sample was handled. The testimony states that the sample had leaked And under those circumstances, it represents substantial risk that contamination could have had.
Are the D1S80 results in terms of the amount of DNA found in the wrist area of that glove consistent with cross-contamination from a sample handling error?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustain.
Move to strike the answer.
The answer is stricken.
On the basis of the amounts of DNA from those D1S80 tests and your review of the procedures that Mr. Yamauchi used, what do you believe about the level of risk of cross-contamination with respect to those results?
Objection, no foundation calls for speculation.
Overruled.
There's substantial risk of cross-contamination under the circumstances.
I used to have big hair. Big hair. Feathers, big hair.
Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman reference samples. Now, Mr. Clark asked you a series of questions about controls and evidence of cross-contamination from the way that samples were handled in the evidence processing room on June 14th and June 15th.
Lots of perms.
Do you recall those?
The question regarding
Collected from the foyer in Mr. Simpson's home, and the Nicole Brown Simpson reference sample and the Ronald Goldman reference sample. Do you believe that the results shown on this board are consistent with cross-contamination that was then retyped in two different laboratories, Cellmark and DOJ?
Objection, no foundation calls for speculation and leading.
Overruled.
yes.
Are the results from this board part of the basis for your opinion that there were unacceptable risks of cross-contamination in the way Mr. Yamauchi handled those samples on June 14th and June 15th?
Yes, these results are consistent with evidence that cross-contamination actually happened.
Now, Dr. Gerdes, you were asked let me show you what is. Oops. This is Defense 1297, a chart depicting runs and strips May through July of 1994. Run contamination, strip contamination, and/or artifacts. Now, Dr. Gerdes, you were asked quite a number of questions on cross-examination about
No, Bobby. We can't damage the boards.
the
Boards'
distinction you
lives
made in
matter.
analyzing strips, where you put that you indicated there was strip contamination and/or artifacts. You recall those?
I do.
And I call your attention to prosecution 66, 566. You see that?
Yes.
What is that strip?
These are a series of strips that the prosecution showed to demonstrate the weak 1.1, I believe in reference to discussing the DX elite.
All right. And this is the 1.1 in the presence of the 1, correct?
Correct.
And it was was it your testimony that in looking at that, one could not tell if those 1.1s were contaminants or artifacts?
That's correct. Under this circumstance, you can't really tell if that's an artifact or a contaminant.
And is that why you made the distinction when you identified the strips?
Yes, in terms of the strips, that's the reason why I did not really try to differentiate between the two, because in many cases, in situations such as this, you can't tell.
Now, what relationship does a result such as depicted on 566, where you can't tell if it's a contaminant or artifact, have in terms of making erroneous typings?
Objection vague.
Sustain. Grace question.
Why is it? What are the problems you see in a result such as depicted on 566 in terms of making an interpretation of the strip?
Well, on you look at the strip that has the 1.1 allele, the weak 1.1 allele, if this were a crime scene specimen, the interpretation of that would be that particular item would type as a 1.2, 1.2, because you can see the 1.2 signal here is dark and the 1 is dark. And for that reason, this would be probably typed as a 1.2, 1.2, but because of the weak 1.1, most likely they would express the fact that that was present there and visible. And so it would be a 1.2, 1.2 consistent with a contributor with a 1.1. So it would be consistent with an individual with a 1.1, 1.1, or an individual with a 1.1, 1.2. So that obviously makes this that artifact has the potential of falsely accusing an individual who's a 1.1, 1.2, when in fact the typing result is from a 1.2, 1.2.
Calls for speculation, no foundation.
Well, Doctor, let me see if I can try to put this in as plain as English as I can. Is the existence of a faint dot like that in a mixture, can that cause an error?
Yes, and it doesn't matter if it's an artifact or a real contaminant. Either way, it can cause an error.
Are dots of that intensity similar to the 1.3 dot we saw before on item 31 of the Bronco console?
Yes.
We can turn it. This is defense 1295.
It's not muted. It's not. I see it.
Dr. Gerdes,
You guys can't hear anything?
you recall Mr. Clark asking you questions about whether or not two analysts ever did samples on the same day in your calculation of runs. Remember that?
I remember that.
Remember he asked you if you were sure about that?
Yes.
All right. Have you rechecked your data?
Yes.
Are you sure that two analysts didn't do strips on the same day?
Yes.
Now, do these runs, as you recorded them by month, represent contamination, definite contamination on the day all the strips were run?
Yes, at this point, they're definite contamination because I take all of the strips on a given date and I can look in the context of what's in all of those strips so that you can confirm with one strip whether you're seeing the same thing in more than one strip.
So this chart represents definite contamination, no ambiguity about artifacts as far as you're concerned.
At this point, that's correct.
By the standards that you are familiar with to accredit DNA laboratories, given this level of contamination in runs, in your opinion, would the Los Angeles Police Department be allowed to operate?
Objection, no foundation. Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Are you familiar with the standards used to regulate DNA laboratories in clinical applications?
Yes.
By those standards, would be allowed to operate with this level of contamination?
Same objection.
Sustained.
Dr. Gerdes, you were, excuse me. You were asked a whole series of questions by Mr. Clark in regard to the use of PCR in other clinical applications. Do you recall those?
I do.
Are you against the use of PCR technology per se?
No, I'm not.
Do you use it yourself?
I do.
Have you developed PCR tests yourself, such as the CMV test?
Yes.
If PCR-based testing
not
is
showing
reliable
up.
for
Wait, am I
some
me?
clinical
Hold on.
applications, does that mean it
No.
is reliable for all others?
No.
Does that mean it is reliable for use on forensic samples?
No.
Zach,
Does the
thank you
reliability
so
of a
much.
PCR-based
Thank you,
technique
thank you.
depend on the standards and the quality of the lab that's using the technique?
Absolutely.
Does it depend on the nature of the samples being tested?
Yes.
Does the fact that the DQ Alpha kit is sold commercially with a user guide mean that this technique is reliable for all forensic uses by all forensic laboratories?
No.
Doctor, have you read, Mr. Clark asked you a whole series of questions about kits. Do you recall those?
Yes.
All right. Do you are you familiar with the discussion in the NRC report with respect to the kits that were used in this case?
Yes, I am.
Do you rely on that in formulating your opinions?
Yes.
Your Honor, we would like to, I've shown this to Mr. Clark, I'd like to put a slide on the screen.
Proceed.
Would the court like to see it first? Just a second.
Mrs. Robertson, what is defense next in order?
1312?
Yes.
Maybe it'd be faster if I just read this.
This fall?
I included two extra sentences that I told him I would
Right.
include. Do you agree with the following statement in the NRC report? One commercial kit for forensic PCR analysis has been marketed. Now, let me just stop there. What kit is that?
At that time, that was the DQ Alpha kit.
Other kits will probably be ready for commercial market soon. What kits would those be?
Polymarker and the D1S80.
The committee sees a potential for introduction of unreliable kits and the misuse of kits. The existence of a kit suggests ease of use and low chance of technical error. The committee believes that non-expert laboratories will run a significant chance of error in using kits. Do you agree with that?
I do.
What is your opinion about this cart in this, what the NRC said, and the LAPD laboratory in this case?
Objection vague.
Oh,
I believe that the situation we've seen here is precisely what the NRC is talking about here.
And why is that?
Objection calls for speculation.
oh,
Why is that?
Because of the LAPD has made substantial errors and have failed to see the subtleties that are critical to interpretation of this kind of testing due to the fact that they were inexperienced.
So just the fact that one has a kit doesn't mean that you can apply it correctly.
That's correct.
Dr. Gerdes, very quickly, you were asked a lot of questions about proficiency tests. Does it make a difference in proficiency tests that the tests involve samples that are just like the ones that you deal with in casework?
Objection has an answer.
On redirect?
well,
All right,
I mean,
I'll just forget it all. I think
it's a point
Why
we
do you-
made.
it's a point. Recall, Mr. Clark asked you about the laminar flow hood in your and the record you made in your notes, correct?
I remember that.
All right. Can you please explain when you realized that the LAPD did not have a laminar flow hood?
That was on my second visit. The first visit, I hadn't noticed that.
Is there any question in your mind that that hood is not a laminar flow hood?
None whatsoever.
Is the fact that it's not a laminar flow hood, does that create dangers of contamination in the laboratory?
Absolutely.
Is a laminar flow hood a fundamental in terms of taking precautions against contamination in a DNA laboratory?
Yes.
Is it disturbing to you that the Los Angeles Police Department DNA laboratory was not aware that its hood was not a laminar flow hood?
Objection leading, argumentative.
Sustained.
What is the significance of this hood not being a laminar flow hood in terms of the level of competence and knowledge of the personnel at the LAPD DNA laboratory?
Objection argumentative, no foundation.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
In terms of the ability, based on your experience as a DNA laboratory director, what is your opinion about laboratory personnel being unaware of the nature of the hood they're using when processing samples?
Same objection, same grounds.
Sustained.
In terms of the reliability of the procedures used at the Los Angeles Police Department, in handling DNA samples, what, in your judgment, is the significance of their failure to know that their hood was not a laminar flow hood?
Same objection, same grounds.
Sustained.
Which the ground is conclusion?
The issue here is, what's the benefit to having a laminar flow hood versus what's there?
Thank you.
That's the real issue.
What's the benefit of having a laminar flow hood versus a chemical hood? Thank you, Your Honor.
The laminar flow hood is designed for the applications where you're concerned about either contaminating an item or being contaminated by that item. That's what they're designed for. That's what their purpose is. A chemical fume hood was designed for an entirely different purpose, which is not appropriate for handling those kind of samples.
If you're working in a DNA laboratory, in your opinion, is it important to know the difference between a chemical hood and a laminar flow hood?
Same objection, same grounds.
Overruled.
Yes, it's important.
Now, you were asked many questions on cross-examination concerning your conclusions about incorrect typing results by the Los Angeles Police Department personnel on mock validation studies and proficiency tests. Do you recall those?
Yes, I do.
All right. First, I'd like to address the mock validation studies. Excuse me, Your Honor. Now, I'm going to show you some slides, but first I'd like to just refresh everybody's recollection with showing the raw data. The first mock validation study was one, if you could pull back, done by Mr. Yamauchi on September 9th. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And this is where he was typing a vaginal swab with an epithelial fraction
Yes.
and a sperm fraction.
Yes.
All right? And you testified he got an incorrect typing result.
That's correct.
Then the second one was the same set of samples typed on September 21st by Aaron Riley. You recall that?
I do.
Now, Your Honor,
Yeah, Mr. Harris, which exhibits are those?
this is, the first one is 561 is the September 9th. 562 is the September 21st.
Thank you.
All right, now I'd like to turn to the slide marked, what's the defendant's next in order? 1314? I can't hear.
1313.
1313, and I guess we'll call this A1. All right, Dr. Gerdes, what does this represent?
On the far left, it represents the correct type for this particular mock validation specimen. So a little symbol on top there stands for the male fraction. The male fraction should be a 1.2, 1.3. The next one below, the epithelial cell, or the female fraction, should be 1.24.
What was the LAPD type?
On the sperm fraction, the LAPD found a 1.24.
And is that a correct type in your opinion?
No, you can see it does not match the anticipated male pattern that should have been there. The 1.2, 1.3 is not equal to 1.24.
We have the next slide, please. All right, tell us what this represents in terms of the consequences of that mistyping.
What that means is given the LAPD type of 1.24, if the suspect were a 4.4, a 1.24, or a 1.2, 1.2, all of those individuals would be included as having matched that male fraction.
Is that one of the reasons you think this is a mistake?
Yes, because these suspects would have been wrongly accused.
Next slide. What does this represent?
Well, since the true and correct type was missed, the 1.2, 1.3 was missed, the true perpetrator would not have been recognized. And so he would have been excluded falsely. So again, that's an error.
The second slide I should note was B, and this third slide is C.
That's correct.
And are these among the reasons that you believe that these were erroneous typings?
Yes.
Is this one reason you disagree with the statement in the validation study that no incorrect results were observed?
Yes.
All right. I'd like now to turn to the next You also discussed two other errors in proficiency tests. First one, just to show the raw data. Could you pull back a little bit, please? So we can see the data. Now, what were these set of samples on July 14th?
These are proficiency samples that were part of a proficiency test.
And what does that mean? Where do the samples come from?
They come from an external source.
All right. Are they supposed to have contaminants in them?
No.
All right. And this was the run done by Aaron Riley on 7/14/93,
Correct.
where you found an incorrect typing?
That's correct.
All right. And is this the raw data for when she did it again on?
She repeated it on 7/15.
Okay, thank you. Now could we turn to the next set of slides that I'll ask you, Mark, defendants 13,
14.
14. And ask slide number 1, which we'll call 1314A. Now, could you please explain to the jury what this data represents?
Well, this is the 7/14/93 proficiency samples. And on that particular date, the female reference sample, number 1, was typed by LAPD as a 1.34. And the correct type is a 1.24.
Now, what is it says number 8 negative control? What does that represent?
The control that is supposed to be a negative control, which should have no DNA whatsoever, in this case, showed the indication of DNA, and that DNA was typable as including 1.2 and 4 alleles.
All right. Could we have the next slide, please, which will be 1314B? What does this indicate?
Well, the LAPD type was a 1.34. The alleles that were found on the negative control include a 1.24, and from that we can conclude that the 1.3 was not detected on the negative control.
Now, in other words, you're saying this means that there was contamination that caused an incorrect type here that was not detected by the negative control.
That's correct.
Now, in your review of the LAPD lab, in your study of contamination of runs and contaminations of strips, in how many instances did you detect contamination that was not picked up by the negative control? In other words, the negative control was blank, but you nonetheless saw contamination.
28% of the times.
Now, let's go to the, then this represents the typing by Aaron Riley on 714.
Correct.
Now, you remember Mr. Clark asked you questions about what would you, did Aaron Riley do the right thing when she typed it again? And you said yes, correct?
Yes.
But at that time, could you please further explain what the answer to that question?
Certainly. The correct procedure actually would be the minute you see any indication of contamination, you need to shut down your operation, you need to clean up with bleach, you need to make new reagents, you need to identify the source of contamination, do a large number of negative controls to make sure they're clean and that you've gotten away from whatever the problem is, and only then do you repeat the test and go on.
Now, should those steps, in terms of documenting the contamination and the efforts to correct it, be documented?
Yes.
Were those documented in the data you saw from the Los Angeles Police Department?
No.
Just what is the significance in terms of contamination that these are proficiency test samples that come from an outside source and you see this contamination?
It simply means that the laboratory has introduced this contaminant into the specimen.
And the contamination here caused, in your judgment, an incorrect typing.
Excuse me, objection leading also calls for speculation.
Sustained. Answer stricken with phrase question.
Could we have the next slide, please, which would be 1314C? Is this the...
This is the rerun on 7/15/93 of that same proficiency test. And again, number 1, the female reference sample, was once again typed as 1.34, indicating that they did nothing to remove the contaminant. It's still there. It's still causing the same error. The correct type should have been a 1.24. And on this particular occasion, the negative control was once again showing DNA. And the DNA that was shown is a 1.2, 1.3 this time.
Next slide, please. 1314D, I believe.
So again, there is an incorrect type on the sample itself.
Next slide, please.
The contaminating alleles of this particular run were a 1.2 and a 4.
Next, on 714, the contaminating alleles were,
A 1.2 and a 4.
all right, and next slide,
And the contaminating runs on 715 are 1.2 and a 1.3.
next slide.
So between those 2 days, you can see how random this process is. What we have is the 1.3 has now appeared on the negative control strip, and the 4 contaminant has disappeared.
Is this any way to run a railroad?
Excuse me, objection argumentative.
Excuse me, is this any way to run a DNA laboratory?
Same objection, Your Honor. Also,
No.
it's also beyond the scope of the witness expertise.
Just briefly, Mr. Clark asked you about other PCR-based
I
techniques.
asked about her yesterday and nobody said
presented. He asked you
anything.
about laboratories that can detect a single cell. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
When laboratories are amplifying up and doing a PCR-based technique on a single cell, how many negative controls do they ordinarily use for that application?
Objection, no foundation.
They would use generally 10 for each sample.
And why is that?
When you're looking at something of that low a concentration, you need to be absolutely sure that you are not getting contamination.
And would it be a fair statement that depending on the application, different controls are necessary?
Yes.
Now, you were asked a whole series of questions about not having done forensic samples in your own laboratory and not attending forensic meetings. Do you recall that?
I remember those.
And incidentally, you were asked some questions about attending forensic meetings at the FBI. You recall those?
I remember.
And can anybody go to those FBI meetings?
No, you need to be invited.
They ever invited you?
No.
Now, you can go to other forensic meetings voluntarily. Is that
Yes,
correct?
you can.
Now, you have criticized here, have you not, the method that the Los Angeles Police Department personnel used in collecting the blood swatches wet in plastic bags. You recall that?
I do.
To evaluate the scientific merits of that procedure, do you believe that you're unable to do so because you have not attended forensic meetings,
No.
that you haven't done specifically forensic samples in your laboratory?
No.
What is your opinion based upon?
I think the fundamental science here is basically microbiology, because that's the science that deals with how to manipulate and handle samples in such a way to prevent cross-contamination and to prevent them from becoming degraded.
And your experience as a DNA laboratory director, does that have relevance here too?
Yes.
In terms of the procedures followed on June 13th in taking the swatches out of the plastic bags from Bundy and Rockingham, not changing gloves, not changing papers when put into test tubes, do your criticisms of that depend upon, in your judgment, attendance at forensic meetings or doing forensic samples?
No.
What about the methods used for taking those samples out of the test tubes by scraping and creating aerosols? Does your criticism of that depend upon attendance of forensic meetings or running forensic samples?
No.
What are those criticisms based on?
Once again, the fundamental issue here is understanding how those manipulations can cause cross-contamination. That's a microbiology issue.
Is it an issue also in terms of...
In a DNA or molecular biology PCR lab, those are molecular biology, fundamental science issues.
in terms of handling Mr. Simpson's reference sample in the way that Mr. Yamauchi did, along with the Rockingham glove and all the Bundy blood drop swatches between 9 and 11 o'clock on the morning of June 14th. In terms of your criticisms of that, do you believe that it is necessary to attend forensic meetings?
No.
Objection calls for speculation.
Do you believe that not having done forensic samples in your laboratory makes you unable to evaluate that?
No.
What are your criticisms based on in terms of your background and experience?
Once again, it's a fundamental question of basic training in microbiology and molecular biology as to how to handle these items that contain very small amounts of material in such a way so that you don't have the risk of creating error and cross-contamination.
Mr. Clark asked you about the fact that you once testified for a prosecutor and in other times testified for defense lawyers. Recall that?
Yes.
Objection misstates the evidence.
Does it, in terms of, does it matter to you which side you testify for?
No.
Upon what do you make your decisions as to, in terms of your testimony?
I'm asked to evaluate the science as to whether the science is fundamentally sound, and that's what I express an opinion about.
You testify for either side.
Correct.
Now, you were asked some questions about the money that you've been paid in this case and your salary. Do you recall those?
Yes,
And do you recall the questions that you were being paid at, what, the rate of $100 an hour here?
that's correct.
And that your salary at IAD is not at $100 an hour. You recall those questions?
Yes.
Now, first of all, do you personally receive the money that you get from this case or any others where you testify as a witness?
No, all of the charges go directly to my laboratory.
And in terms of the amount of money that you write grant proposals, is that correct?
Yes.
And as part of that, do you have to make an assessment of how much it costs IAD to have you as an employee?
Yes, that's part of writing a budget for a grant.
And is the expenditure of money that IAD pays you reflected merely in your salary?
No, you have an additional 43% in indirects and benefits.
All right. And when you're away from the laboratory, does IAD, is there an opportunity cost for IAD? Could you
Yes.
explain what that term is?
Well, since I'm not at the laboratory, my function at the laboratory is to promote the work of that laboratory, so my productivity is lost. It's not just my time, but my productivity in terms of working in a lab and getting business for that laboratory is lost.
Okay. I feel like my time today was lost. So there you go. And I mean, we didn't get to the end of today. We still have, oh boy. At our speed, we have like 30 more minutes. And then we go to the last part of August 7th. 2 hours long. Could be him. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We shall find out tomorrow. Today's Wednesday. I hope you guys have a great Wednesday. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate it. And I'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.